going on in Rhode Island. It has existed, but there's a lot of conversation about trying to define it. And tourism and recreation is just one of the sectors that we'll be talking about this summer in our summer series. So I would like to first acknowledge that Newport Craft sponsored the beer, so thank you to them. If you would like a beer or water or sandwich, please dig in. Restrooms are down the hall if you need that. Now I'd love to welcome our panelists. We have Brad Reed, Executive Director of Sail Newport, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to public access to the sport of sailing, which provides custom programs for schools, municipal organizations, adults, and youth. Under Brad's direction, Sail Newport also manages local, regional, and international and world-class regattas. Brad's duties include raising funds for Sail Newport Scholarship and financial aid programs for community families. Welcome, Brad. Thank you
Thanks.
for being here.
Thanks for having me, Molly.
Nancy Piffard, who has enjoyed a 21-year career as show director for the Newport International Boat Show, overseeing sales, marketing, and operations. The Newport International Boat Show, one of the largest in-water boat shows in the country, is going on its 50th year. Thank you for being here, Nancy.
Thank you.
And we have Evan Smith, who is the president and CEO of Discover Newport. Discover Newport is a destination marketing organization dedicated to promoting the 9 towns of Newport and Bristol counties for business and leisure travel. Evan has been active in the travel industry for over 40 years. Welcome, Evan.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for being here. We'd love to have, since it's a small group, we'd love to have this be conversational. And I'd love to just start by posing a question to you, like, why are you here? If anyone's comfortable just saying, hi, my name's Molly, and I'm here because of this, I'll just open the floor to anybody who just would like to say, what maybe an organization they're associated with, or what's just why they're here. We'd love to get a sense of that, because that may help us guide the conversation. Anybody? Yes.
Elizabeth Lind, Bear Charitable Foundation. I'm trying to understand the drivers of the blue economy.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yes.
My name's Bill Steele, and I came here to do some sailing in 1968, and met my wife here, and here I am, 52 years, 53 years later, we got married in Infinity the year after. And I'm really here more on behalf of my grandson, who's just finished his 3rd year at URI as an engineer, very interested in boats, sailing, and anything that floats on the water, and also all the things behind them, the technology going into the modern boats and construction, and also how technology is helping people to refine tactics on the water with a lot of feedback. And he managed to get himself a spot on one of these UIC 37s. And one of his jobs is to go over a film that they take every race from the stern looking forward, trying to ascertain all the mistakes they made, and who did what to whom at the wrong time, so that they can improve the next time around. There's a class of, I don't know how many boats it is now, probably about 35, and they want to make the information that they get available to all the boat owners, so it's in a club. So 20 of the boats are actually owned by by
New York Yacht Club.
New York Yacht Club, and rented out to vastly rich people who rent them lease them for a whole season. And so they're interested in getting feedback, sort of technical feedback, with sort of a lot of digital data about courses and speeds and wind speeds and all sorts of things like that, with a commentary on it as well, so it's more understandable.
Thank you for sharing, Bill. Anybody else feel like sharing? Yes.
Brian Dursey with the Rhode Island Marine Trades Association. We have our office upstairs, a long commute, but following your series, number 2 of 8.
Yes. Thank you, Brian. And Brian will be serving on a panel as well for the session on marine trade.
Are you Kim's son?
Yes, I
Yep. I thought that was you.
Yeah,
she sadly couldn't come, but.
yeah. Well, nice to meet you. I read the book.
Oh, awesome.
Great, okay, well, we'll just turn it over here, and, I think that if you're comfortable, people can raise their hand and ask questions. and it'll
100%.
be interactive, so
Great.
we'll take it away. Please go ahead.
So am I going to start?
Yes,
Is that,
please.
yep, okay, great. Thank you very much, Molly, and good to get to hear some of the things that you want to hear about here. We'll try to touch on as many as we can. I'm not going to get into tactics and strategy in sailboat racing tonight, Bill, but maybe at some point.
No,
Uh,
actually, the thing is, he's interested in sort of work opportunities
Right.
that open up when
Well-
he graduates in a year's time.
I will get into that a little bit because my kids were in the same program. My name's Brad Reed. I'm the executive director of Sail Newport. Sail Newport was actually founded in 1983 after the loss of the America's Cup, specifically to bring international sailing events back to Newport after the loss of the Cup. The Cup is gone. What are we going to do? New York Yacht Club lost the Cup. The Australians took it down under. The sky had fallen. So three local businessmen, Dr. Robin Wallace, Bart Dunbar, and Paul Buttrose, put this organization together. And some 37 years later, we've morphed into one of the largest sailing centers certainly on the East Coast, and a model sailing center for the country and the world. We activate the blue economy in 4 different ways. We bring in international sailing events, regional sailing events, local sailing events to Newport, which is kind of more on the marine tourism side of the world. Then we also offer local boat owners an opportunity to keep their boats on our facility. You're one of our storage customers. And for inexpensive price, and we have amenities to allow small fleets of sailboats to grow in size. So the fleet building through inexpensive storage, access to hoists, ramps, storage lots, and everything else. And we work with the state of Rhode Island to supply those opportunities for people. Number 3 is education. And education is split into 2. There's recreation education, teaching people to sail, allowing the access to Narragansett Bay in an increasingly privatized environment for our waterfront. Not many opportunities to just roll down the hill these days and go through someone's yard and access Narragansett Bay, anywhere in Rhode Island. So Sail Newport, with the state of Rhode Island, has 6 acres of land to apply that specific pressure in this blue economy. How do we get people to understand that sailing is accessible? How do we then build programming, supply financial aid, keep things cost effective so people can afford to bring their kids down or to take lessons and understand that sailing is for them, not just for rich people, as it's always been shown. So that leads to the last component, which is education. Education, we have worked with the Newport Public School System, with the superintendent, with the principal of Pell, with funders like Van Buren and 11th Hour Racing to supply a unique experience for every 4th grader in Newport Public Schools. 16-week program where kids come for 3 hours a week, half the time in a sailboat, half the time in our new classroom building at Sail Newport, where they can learn how to sail, which leads to so many different life lessons, such as situational awareness, respect for the environment, teamwork, perseverance, learning about failure, learning about how to get up from failure, ultimately self-confidence, self-esteem, and a really new respect for the town that they live in. That's the sailing component. We link it with standard-based curriculum such as geography, geology, weather, mapping, sometimes even geometry. And we link those 2 things together to make for an experience outside their classroom. We've gotten full buy-in from the city, thank you to the city, also from the school department, and thankfully, after 3 years of doing this, we lost a year to COVID, we're gonna get it back, with the teachers. The teachers love it. So picture this. You have 50 kids coming on a school bus every day. 25 kids go upstairs to our classroom, and 25 kids with their teachers go down and get life jackets on and get directly on a boat. Our instructors know the lesson plan for that week. Let's say it's geology. And our instructors take the kids right out that went on the boats, and they go out and they learn how to sail. They're learning the jib, they're learning the main, they're learning how to drive, they're learning the teamwork, they're working on all that stuff. Very important. But they also have an idea of what is happening in that classroom. So as they go around Brenton Cove and they see the geological formations under Beacon Rock and the glacier just ripped through that, they say that's a glacial, even if maybe it's not, but it looks like a glacial thing that was carved out. They see the beach and they see the potential of runoff coming down and creating Fort Adams Beach. So they link those two concepts together, learning how to sail and also what's going on in the classroom. So those are kind of what we bring to the table in terms of the blue economy: education, access, recreation. Recreation is in a bunch of different ways: marine tourism, marine competition, we hold regattas, and then again, access to the waterfront. But as an overall blue economy, the last thing I wanted to say is the blue economy has been here well before the Pilgrims came to Plymouth Rock. The marine economy, the blue economy, anything to do with the ocean, has been here for millennium. Fishing, trade, transportation, those were all here well before we were here, and those still exist. Yes, Rhode Island has lost recreational boat building. There is a very limited number of new boats being built in this state. That was what we were known for in the 50s, 60s, 70s, even back into the Herreshoff Manufacturing Company days. We've lost that. But what we haven't lost is this new service economy. And I don't mean a service economy as in, gas stations and those kind of things. This is a service economy of diesel mechanics, electricians, riggers, engineers, people who refit boats, marinas that have dedicated their entire businesses to refitting. That's what Rhode Island is now the best at. And that's what people come to Rhode Island to do. And that's the message that I have for you all, is to be understanding of the absolute ecosystem that we have here. And Rimta, you can speak to this more than I can. This ecosystem of workers needs to grow through education, through different, because not every kid's going to college these days, not every kid's getting an engineering degree. These are opportunities that we have to showcase to our schools, Community College of Rhode Island, New England Tech, Iris, all of these different places. So what I'm here to say is the blue economy has been here for millennium. We have a small component of that. We're really proud of what we do. I'm sure we can do better, so I'm looking for your feedback as well. So thank you. Sure.
So I have an education background, and I really love everything you said, 'cause I'm a huge believer in experiential learning.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when you get kids to be intrinsically motivated to do something and to get engaged and invested. And so I do agree with getting them early, not only for the workforce development piece, but just to be involved, invested, active citizens, engaged citizens. Do you have a plan, or are you in conversation with continuing your wonderful fourth grade program, expanding that?
Yep, we've been talking to the administration and Thompson teachers. Our first foray is going to be getting the fifth graders that missed their fourth grade experience to have an experience this year, and hopefully dovetail that into a middle school program. Now, we also have a high school program with Rogers, Middletown, Portsmouth, and they have their competition. They have their high school sailing teams down at our place. So yeah, right now we have the education component. We want to get that recreation component a little bit more dialed in the middle school, and see if we can move from there. But over 10,000 people go sailing through Sail Newport a year. And we do really try to be everything to everyone. But those shoulder seasons are so important, Molly, that we have the access to boats. That's our downtime. And let's create programs with not only the public schools, but the private schools. We have a program with St. Michael's. St. Michael's started a program, that they can pay for. We pay for everything. We actually go out and get funding from our partners. We pay for every single thing of that fourth grade program, from snacks to buses to our boats to our instructors to all the different gear that we buy them. So it's a blast.
That's awesome, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm next. Okay, well, first of all, I thank you for inviting me. And my take is probably going to be a little bit different, coming from a show director for the boat show, which, as you just heard, is 50 years old. And just for a little bit of...
Could you speak up a little louder or turn the machine on?
And this one might be a little bit, it's a little
okay.
stronger.
So the boat show is 50 years old this year, and just a little bit of history. It all started way back in 1970 when a gentleman named Paul Dotson had the opportunity to see the Annapolis boat show and said, this looks pretty good. Why aren't we doing something like this? So he started a sailboat show, and that was at Goat Island. From Goat Island, it moved to Fort Adams. From Fort Adams, it went to Newport Harbor Hotel and Marina. And then finally, I think in the early 80s, Tim O'Reilly owned the property down at the Yachting Center, and he didn't want to see condominiums or anything go up, and Jock West approached him and said, well, why don't you buy the show and we'll create a marina, and events can happen here, and this will be great for the community. So Tim liked the idea, and since then, it has certainly grown. It has become a powerboat and a sailboat show together, and it's an international show. So currently, it's on around over 14 acres, downtown Newport. Takes over in September. But the one thing I want to say is it's pretty serious business, because the exhibitors who are coming here, they want to see a return on their investment. I mean, there's 21 countries represented at the show: Turkey, New Zealand, Holland, you name it. They want their products here. They want access to the Northeast market, North American market. So it's important for them to be here, but the show itself it's a B2B, business to business, because the exhibitors are meeting each other and want to do business with each other. So it's a networking platform. And then the consumer, of course, is the person coming to buy the goods, boats, products, everything marine related. And then also there's the sponsors. So economically, if I turn that into an economics, I mean, all these people are in Newport. And it's a pretty good boost to the local economy in September when kids are back, summer's over, and the restaurants, the hotels, service industry, shopping, they all can benefit from that boost in September. I mean, I know that it can be a nightmare in the town, but for the most part, these people are here because they want to be here. And I think that Newport as a destination really adds to it. So having that as our background makes it even more attractive. And just as far as economics too, there's probably over 350 marine-related businesses in Rhode Island that we want to help them market what they have, get their name out there, get their goods out there. And then also that's about 5% of the Rhode Island's economy. It represents about 5%. So that's all. Those are all good numbers, and we become a venue for those people to come here. And really that's what we are. We provide a venue. And the other thing that I would take into consideration too is that all the other companies that we're working with locally, the electricians, the tent companies, Porta-Johns, you name it, they're all here, and that's who we are working with. So it provides work for them too. And we also hire. There is certainly staffing is not easy this year, but there's about 250 temporary staff that work the show. So we hope that, you know, as far as having it here, and I want to thank the city for being so supportive of us, you know, while we're here, and knowing that the show is an important part of our economy. And yeah, and so that's what I do. And when I was thinking about the blue economy, you know, I kind of took some notes where it said use of ocean resources for economic growth, improved livelihoods, jobs, and while preserving the health of the ocean. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking how electric engines like are now a big thing, and the Clean Marinas program, I mean, people not wanting to pollute anymore, and how things are changing, and that the clean ocean is really a very important part of what everybody is doing. So that kind of fits into what I see as the future, you know, and we're seeing a lot of that this year. There's a lot of electric engines coming, and it'll be really exciting to see what's new and innovative. So that's how I see this. And any questions for me?
I have a question.
Sure.
So on the innovative stuff,
Yeah.
and maybe this is a question for Brian as well, are we, as Rhode Island Marine Trades, are we on the cutting edge of some of these technologies, like the new electric engines and the lithium power issues? I know we're always been on the cutting edge of clean harbors and making sure that you know, we're on, you know, have the Green Marinas program and things. But on the technology front, specifically on battery and electric propulsion.
Yes, there are companies in Rhode Island that are on that leading edge, developing all electric engines, starting from the ground up. So they're not just trying to insert a battery into an engine, they're actually developing an entire engine around the Bach battery model. There's other companies that are, I know you work with them, that are, you know, connecting boats, so it's smart technology, so you can control your boat from your phone and monitor your bilge pumps, et cetera. So Rhode Island is still the hub and the center of leading edge technology.
And just hearing what you both said, those companies will be at the show, and what we do is we have an awards program called Newport for New Products, and we want those companies to make Newport where they launch.
Perfect.
So that's going to happen, and that becomes a press event, because that's where the future is going, and it's so important. And
So I'm curious as to, and just to dwell on the electric engines for a moment, how advanced are they, would you say, the product in this area of the country? I mean, the only reason I'm asking that question is I was looking at an electric engine or a dinghy at one time, and the best one, and the one that, for example, the local marine place has out of Germany.
Correct.
I forget the name of the place, and it really looked.
yeah, Torquedo.
Torquedo.
It really looked like a great product. You know, you could take the engine, you put it in a little bag at the end of the day, you take it home with you, you charge the
Charge it.
battery. I just thought that's pretty magnificent.
So the French are ahead on this. The French are doing a great job. They have actually some really innovative products that are going to be put into a couple of the ocean race boats to try it, to see if that works, and try to get rid of the diesel propulsion altogether. But I don't think that the U.S. doesn't have many electric engine companies, but I did just hear that Yanmar made a big purchase of a company that had a technology that they wanted. They went out and grabbed a company, and Yanmar, which is an international brand, as you know, will be in the game shortly.
Great, because the German one was, I thought, it's relatively, I mean, for an engine, for a dinghy, it's relatively expensive.
Yeah.
You know, so if you could get, you know, I'm sure that's the,
And everything's getting miniaturized,
yeah.
and right now it's everything's kind of big and bulky, but it's coming. It's coming. But
come
Rhode
to the
Island
show,
has
you'll
an
see.
opportunity there, which we currently don't really have a kind of a. We're just not in the game yet. So
Opportunity, though.
Blue Tech, one of our sessions will be Blue Tech, and I think we'll get a little bit more on
Right.
this topic as well.
Good.
Right, and it's interesting, I just worked on the list of all these new companies, and I wish I could remember some of the names. Some of them, were, between Mass, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, but I just can't remember,
Flux Marine is one.
Yes, Flux Marine is one, you're absolutely right. Vision Marine Technologies, there's a few. Thank you.
In terms of kind of branching off, I guess, in terms of new technology and envisioning the future, you mentioned that you guys do like rewards or like programs in terms of new companies that come to the boat show. Do you have any other situations or ideas around growing out the future of the boat show? Whether that is having new avenues or
Yes, electric. It's actually what we're looking at. We are looking at trying to have that be a segment. So yes, that's exactly what we're doing. Yeah.
Along those lines, I was gonna just ask you, that last year was canceled.
Yes, last year was canceled.
So what, many people had to pivot during
Oh, yeah.
this and switch
Yeah.
gears, so.
Well,
Standpoint, how will you move forward knowing that?
the marine industry is one industry that did so well during COVID. It was unexpected in the beginning, but then everybody realized what a great way to social distance. And I have to tell you, I mean, just even from, COVID, say March is when everything kind of hit. By April, May, the dealers and manufacturers could not believe what was happening. They were selling out. And right now, there is absolutely a shortage of inventory, and we were just talking about that. They can't make boats fast enough, which, and also too, and then you have staffing shortages so that, they don't even have people to build. And, we work so hard to get people into boating, and it took a pandemic to really just, from kids now going out with their parents all the time. They're the future. There are future boaters, and it's just unbelievable.
Even for the big manufacturers,
Yeah.
like Yamaha.
Yeah, you can't get an engine.
Yeah, the supply chains are all,
Yes, it will catch up. It's going to take a while because the orders, it's years. Yeah, you can't get an engine. You may have a boat and you want to go boating, but you can't get the engine. So it's really amazing what the pandemic did do for boating. Huh.
I gather the same thing happens with RVs, recreational.
Yeah. Oh,
And
and it was just so safe for everyone to go out there and boat.
unless you were around new boaters and
Right.
and
Oh,
it was not quite as safe.
I do want to say we're bringing in education to
education
the show too, because
Such an important feature.
it's like sometimes it's the Wild West out there, and all these new boaters, we know that we have to focus on education too, which was what I wanted to do for 221, because it's so important.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Oh my God, it's scary out there, and so I think we have Freedom Boat Club that's going to be training at the show for in water, and then I'm still working on another seminar, classroom seminars. So hopefully people will take the courses.
I'm not a boater, but I'm wondering to what extent is the houseboat segment important to your industry? It's been a hot topic in places like Seattle,
Right.
Sausalito, California, Newport, Rhode Island, for at least an hour last night at the council meeting concerning the regulation. What do you see in your crystal ball, at least US-wise, for that?
The way I look at it, every
Yeah.
boat's a houseboat.
Yeah, but it is interesting because pontoons and houseboats have not really been a part of a segment that
Yeah,
is here.
it's not here.
It's not here,
Right.
and it's like lakes are
Yeah.
more popular with the pontoon, and then the houseboats. It's not many.
Are you talking about the concept of houseboats becoming B&Bs?
Just being
That and potentially long-term, as there is this national discussion about reducing the cost of housing.
yeah.
Micro-housing on land, is there an opportunity set? I don't know.
February would be tough to live on a boat
Yeah.
in this harbor. But I remember when we were kids in the 70s, houseboats were pretty prevalent. You saw houseboats around a lot, and then they just went away. The pontoon boat industry on the lakes is
Yeah.
exploding. and they can't make them fast enough.
They're not
Uh,
here.
But I haven't seen the houseboat market
No.
grow here.
I just have one comment on that, which is, I have a sister who lives over in Westport, Massachusetts. And I go over and we go fishing and other stuff and clamming and stuff in the harbor and stuff. And it was interesting to me, somewhat of an epiphany for me. I saw a lot of boats in the harbor and they didn't have an engine on them. I was looking at them and I thought to myself, sis, what's up with this? And she goes, those are houseboats. I said, what do you mean a houseboat? She said, well, those are people who live someplace else. They want to have a waterfront home. And so they get a mooring or they get a slip and they commute here for the weekend and they live, on the water for a fraction of the price that you would pay for a major home. And so I suspect, well, I wasn't at last night's council meeting, I suspect this is a topic for a lot of waterfront communities as to how they're going to zone that, how they're going to deal with it. But it was pretty interesting because she said, oh yeah, in the fall, they just, Brad said it's tough in the winter. She said they just pull them out, put them in a farm field, park them in the farm field and put them back in May. And so they got a waterfront home, literally waterfront, like you miss the rail and you're in. So,
It's a new tiny home.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like having a tree house, but on the water.
Right.
And obviously, that links back to your conversation about electric motors, because there was a small form factor. You could attach that temporarily in the back end of your houseboat.
All right.
As far as you need to.
Put some solar panels on,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
How long do you think it'll take before they start inflating the prices of that, similar to where housing is? Just everyone to get one of those, and most boats now you still have to take out a loan, but to get one of those, it's going to be.
Well, there's a wait list on Airstreams, so I wish I could talk more on the houseboat thing, but,
But
I
any,
think-
any boat.
right.
But
right.
any boat, the supply and demand
Yeah.
has risen prices on almost everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to buy a 22-foot center console to go fishing in right now, you're paying a premium in the
Yeah.
used boat market.
Oh, yeah.
And people, just like houses, I mean, the prices have gone up. It's the first time in my life that used boat market has increased, increased the pricing. It's always been depressed. Now it's a luxury item that people really started understanding that they had the freedom to be outside of COVID for a while last summer. And I think people have found boating, finally.
Right, and we got a question from somebody called the office and said, will there be any deals at the boat show? I'm like, I don't think this year there will be any deals.
Sailmakers
No,
will still make.
yeah, I know. For boats, I'm like,
If you want to see where the houseboat market has really kind of expanded to the nth degree, you just need to look at Sausalito. You need to look at Vancouver. I mean, those are cities that are now floating cities, And of course, obviously, Asian cities have been there for a long time. But in America and in Canada, a lot of the West Coast cities are far more evolved than where we are. And some of those Sausalito, boats are, in the millions of dollars, They're just a floating box.
Yeah.
So.
It's a great question, thank you.
yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Evan, and I'm one of the few things standing between you and getting out of here, so I hope I can share some words of wisdom, but you're not going to offend me if you want to go get a nice Coast cold one. That's good. So I'm the travel guy. I've had the great privilege and honor of being Newport's tourism director for the last 30 years. Spent my entire career in the travel industry. I wanted to be a teacher. I got my degree in geography and environmental science, and graduated in 1977, and that means I was born in 1955, and for any of you old geezers, that means I was born in a year where more people were born than any other year in American history. So when I came out, there was no jobs, and I couldn't be a teacher because there was no jobs, and I had to go find a different job, and so I found myself in the travel industry all these years later. But maybe when I retire, I'll go back and be a teacher. But so when Molly was nice enough to reach out and invite us to do this session, she was like, yeah, talk 10 or 15 minutes. And I was like, all right. I usually try to do my homework and get my head around what I'm going to be talking about and what my message is and, all those good things. And the first thing that hit me, I was like, wow, what if I was the tourism director of a place that had no water? What would that be like, right? spent my whole life on water, or professional life promoting places with water, and I thought, what if I was, with all due respect, if anybody's here from the Midwest or someplace else, I don't mean to be offensive, but you know, it'd be kind of an interesting thought for me, because water has always been a key part of what I've done in promoting destinations and places, and we all came from water. We all gravitate back to water. It's a biological fact. But that was kind of a framework or a foundation I started with when I started to think about what inspiration could I share with all you guys at late in the afternoon. So I was starting to think, and so here's the story I've prepared for you this afternoon. Man has traveled since the beginning of time. We were once in balance with nature, as Brad pointed out. The native peoples back in the day really had a more balanced, symbiotic relationship with nature. But somewhere, probably, you know, if there's any historians in the crowd, we could debate that, but when the Industrial Revolution came, we became odds, man became odds with nature, and there were a lot of infractions. And when you think about this definition of blue economy, and I had, you know, I'll confess I went to Wikipedia and I Googled blue economy, and there's like 12 definitions of it, but Nancy did a good job talking about the basic principles of it, but I didn't want to like get up here and whiff and like have the wrong definition, so I thought I'd get it right. But anyway, you look back in time and we were there, and then we weren't. And now we're talking about how we want to go forward and be sustainable and be better stewards. And so we can look back in our lifetimes and marvel, or I think a better word would be disgusted or embarrassed about how poor stewards we were of our planet, particularly of our waterways. We screwed up a lot of things, you know, massive oil spills. When you think about how we've handled wastewater and dumping, you know, and taking all our trash and just dumping it in rivers, dumping it in the ocean, dumping it in different places, we spent decades definitely on the wrong track. And we're going to pay a price for that, and it's going to take time to clean it and filter it and get this generation, and more importantly, the next generation and generations to follow, to make sure they follow that game plan of keeping the planet in a sustainable place. But like everything else, a lot of it comes back to economy, right? And a lot of the bad things that happened were because of the economy. You make more money by dumping your garbage in the ocean. It's cheaper, so you save money. So let's do that. No, that's not good, right? You don't want to do that. I know at least there's one other Jamestowner here, Elizabeth Lynn. I don't know if anybody else is. But you've heard the term Save the Bay, all right? So I don't know how many of you know the origins of Save the Bay, but they wanted to start a deep water oil refinery in Jamestown. They wanted to clear cut the whole north end of Jamestown. They wanted to build a tank farm on the whole north end of Jamestown and deliver crude oil here. And so you have to say, well, was that good for business or bad for business? And a lot of people said, well, it's not the business we want. And Save the Bay was born, and it was at the time one of, if not the largest environmental group in the United States. And they fought and they kicked and they bit and they scratched, and they won. They chased them out. And Elizabeth and I live on the land where those tanks would have been, right? Mm-hmm. We're living right in the middle of that tank farm. So we've finished decades, pick a number, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 decades of environmental abuse, which was at our own hands. We can't blame anybody else. We have to look in the mirror and say, the economy basically made us do it. You know, we overfished, we overdid everything, right? And so now, you know, you have this conversation about the blue economy, and it's okay, we have to think more about what is sustainable, and, you know, how can we make money but not at the risk of ruining the environment, right? And I think that's the call to action. That's where we've got to put our our brains and our innovation and our creativity. You know, here in Newport on Aquidneck Island, there have been so many different new applications of experiences on or near the water that translate into business. I'm thinking, I don't know if you all know this, but you can take a lobster tour in Newport Harbor. You can get on a boat and go out and watch them pull up a lobster trap, and they'll tell you all about lobstering, and it's pretty cool. You learn all the various different things about lobstering. It's an interesting tour. You obviously, sailing tours, boat tours have been popular for many years and doing that kind of thing. You can take scuba diving tours. You can go whale watching. There's so many different interesting experiences that can be sustainable and generate money for our economy. And so, you know, each one of these things has to be kind of reviewed as to its merits, its impact, and that's a vetting process, a filtration process that we have to go through as a society. Not every idea is a great idea, but some of them are, and so we have to challenge ourselves to think through that. And so as I start to, you know, one example I wrote down was sport fishing. You know, if you hunt or fish and you wipe out the species you're after, you just closed your business plan, right? So you need to, you know, we have limits on fishing. We have size limitations. You know, striped bass have to be a specific size, or you need to do this or do that. Those are good measures because we're protecting the business. We're protecting the sustainability of what we're doing. And I think that's really fundamentally very important. Some other business elements is, you know, there was a day when ferries played a much more important role in society than they do here today, frankly. There was a day when you came to Aquidneck Island by ferry from Manhattan. Those ferries docked on Long Wharf. And there was a train there, and you either stayed here or you got on that train, you went to Boston. But that's how you got here. There's fast ferries now that leave Manhattan that go to Martha's Vineyard. I don't think there's any that go to Nantucket, Joe, but I know there's one that goes to the Vineyard. But there's an opportunity there to get people here on the water in a business plan that's very sustainable. But it's an old idea. It's an idea that was used for a couple of 100 years. We just put it in the closet and forgot about it. You know, we have a wonderful Jamestown ferry service. We have the Newport Providence ferry service. Might we see a Quonset ferry someday, the way that Boston Logan Airport transports people from Logan across the bay into the city of Boston? Might we see that someday? I don't know. By the time I'm done with Rich Overmeyer, we're going to have one, Rich. So I thought I'd also kind of take you, because it's almost dinner time, so I'm going to make you hungry. But thinking about the oceans, thinking about how to use the oceans, I wanted to make some comments about sustainable fisheries, and that may come up in other talks, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder. But where I'm going with that thought is man's been fishing since the beginning of time. And we've done it right, we've done it wrong, we've overfished. I can't tell you how many people I've met here. I am not a native Rhode Islander, I'm a carpetbagger, I'm proud of being a carpetbagger, but I've met a lot of old timers here, and they would tell me, oh yeah, I remember seeing swordfish floating on the bay, you know, sitting on the surface, sun tanning in the bay. It's like, wow, cool. You gotta go pretty far out to get swordfish today. And hopefully we can help that species back. But where I was going with this thought is, think about for a moment calamari, think about scallops, think about oysters, think about lobsters. Rhode Island harvests so much calamari, it's unbelievable. And you can go to a restaurant pretty much anywhere in the United States, maybe even in the world, and I want you to, when the waiter comes, ask him or her, could you go ask the chef where that calamari is from? And I'll bet you a beer, a glass of wine, they're going to come back and say it's from Rhode Island. I've done that hundreds of times. The Ocean State imports calamari everywhere. we are the squid capital of the world. It's amazing.
Gotta be known for something.
Yeah. Anybody here dine at the Matunic Oyster Bar? Yeah, down there, right? What a great business model, right?
Grow your own.
You know, it's unbelievable.
It's really
right?
cool.
It's just unbelievable how he's done that. What's kind of cool about it to me too is that fish farming has been very controversial for a long time. Fish farming has not always been sustainable. Fish farming actually had some really bad episodes in different parts of the world, because when you put a bunch of salmon in a tank and you put them in a bay, it doesn't, the ecosystem fails. And so we learned that the hard way. But what we're learning now is that you can do with oysters a sustainable program. They're in Jamestown, they're all over the place, and I, for one, love oysters, and I'm always real proud to say, well, where are those oysters from? And, you know, I'm kind of connoisseur of oysters, where they're coming. Are they from Westport, or are they from the Cape, or, you know, I wouldn't call myself an oyster snob, but I do enjoy oysters. So, anyway, I saw an article in the paper today about sea scallops, and it was talking, you know, about big business here. $570 million industry in 2019, 60 million pounds, throwing out some big numbers here. But the Atlantic, their point was that the Atlantic sea scallop industry was slightly off this year, but history shows us that it has peaks and valleys and has variations. But you look at these seafoods, and I'm only using a couple of them, but oysters, clams, calamari, scallops, mussels, you know, we talk about farm to table, we're talking about ocean to table, we're talking about what it means and that has a big part of driving visitation, because people who come here from other parts of the country, particularly from non-water parts of the country, say, well, I want to try some seafood. I want to try a lobster. I want to try a stuffy. I want to try something. And so regional food is a big part of travel, and it's something that we're doing reasonably well. But I think we could even do better. And the old Aquidneck lobster shed, whatever you want to call that, where they had all the lobsters, right? So I cannot tell you how many, I can't count how many people over the years I've toured around our city, tour operators, travel agents, travel journalists, meeting planners, other people, and you take them around on the 8-list tour and you show them this and you show them that and you show them how beautiful the destination is. And I used to always take them into Aquidneck Lobster. And Aquidneck Lobster knew me, they knew they could trust me, so I had earned their trust to be able to stick my hand in the tank and grab a lobster and pick it up. And the person you're with goes, whoa, you know, wants to have their picture taken with the lobster. And, you know, I was self-taught how to tell a male or female lobster. It wasn't hard. You know, some fun factoids like lobster, you know, can grow its arms back if they get ripped off and things like that. I've forgotten the scientific name for that. But anyway, I'd get notes back from people from all over the world who toured, and they said, yeah, the Newport mansions were cool, and this was that. And when we stopped at the lobster factory, that was the coolest part of the whole experience. And so I bring up that point about the harvest of the sea and what it means to people and what it can do for people and the power of that and what it does to their travel experience. That's a big part. So obviously, I'm going to move along real quickly. I think Brad and Nancy were far too kind, and or the impact that big races have, sailboat races have on this community, the Newport Bermuda race, the Newport Annapolis, the Transatlantic, the around the world. The Sail Newport sailing calendar is like 4 pages long. You know, every one of those events has an enormous economic impact. Nancy's boat show produces, I'm going to take a guess, in the neighborhood of $40–50 million. You didn't talk about the bottom line, but I'd put it over 50 million. Okay, yeah. I know you don't want to brag, but it's not small business. That's big business, okay, as are all of these regattas and other things. You know, we're at a point right now where we have some very exciting venues. We have the Sailing Hall of Fame coming. Joe, congratulations to you and your team for landing that fish. It's going to be a phenomenal museum and venue. of how Newport relates to the sea and the story that we tell of our relationship with the sea. There's some other exciting updates coming that I can't, but I know Joe knows. But I'm going to close with the same closing that Brad and Nancy did, which is for those of us in the travel industry, and these are my colleagues from around the globe who promote travel, I think where we sit here in 2021, looking towards the future, is what is our role in promoting responsible travel? What does it mean to be a responsible traveler? What does it mean to be a guest in a community? What is your obligation to a host community, and how do you give back? That's really on the forefront of the discussions. If I sit down with 300 or 400 of my colleagues from around the United States or from around the world, that's what we talk about. That's what we care about. That's what we want to be. Don't have all the answers, but we're looking towards a future where people will continue to travel. But we need to be responsible when we travel, and we have to be responsible for our actions when we travel. Question?
Yeah, so it really deals with sustainability. So the first two panelists did a nice job talking about how they're on ocean, on water segments, dealing with sustainability issues. Plastics, all saw it in action when Volvo Ocean Race was here in a very, very major way. But now we have the land-based tourism side, and your organization has gone on record in the last couple of years saying Newport really needs couple thousand more hotel rooms. So here, several of us are year-round residents of Newport. We look at Newport's very vulnerable land-based infrastructure, traffic congestion, natural gas pressure in the middle of winter that put us out of business for a week in our house, drinking water quality issues, wastewater discharge issues, telecom issues. So we look worldwide and we look at these tourist meccas, whether they're Iceland, they're Venice, they're Barcelona, Amsterdam, as well as some U.S. national parks. And they're saying, well, maybe we need to actively, openly have conversations about the tourism strategy. Here in Newport, I'm still waiting to hear any conversation about a long-term tourism vision coming from city council, city staff, or your organization. And I'm just left wondering, what do you see as the upper bounds to sustainable tourism?
So,
And how do we have that conversation with the political folks who are on 2-year re-election cycles around here and salivate at the specter of 2,000 more hotel rooms coming into Newport to collect hotel tax, drink tax, but when you raise the alternative revenue mechanisms such as transfer taxes, the world comes apart because of Rhode Island's fragmentation and desire to protect everybody's particular rice bowl.
so
It's back to the, how do you have that conversation about the upper bounds of the tourism sector?
I'm going to try to give you 3 answers, but I don't want to gravitate too far away from the topic of the day, which is the blue economy. But the first thing I would say to you is that world population is growing. More and more people will travel. All destinations will find themselves at a conversation of how do you capacity control your product, okay? So ski resorts was one of the first elements to get to that point. They used to sell as many tickets as they wanted to, and then they said, well, no, you know what, we can only sell so many tickets. And that largely happens on Saturdays and Sundays. They don't have that capacity problem midweek, but theme parks then followed and said, look, we're too crowded, we have too long of lines, we can only have X number of people in the park at some period of time. So I think the first point I wanted to share with you is that capacity controlled visitation is here now, and it's a conversation that's happening. It's already happened in Venice. So, you know, how do you regulate the number of people that come into a community? That's a conversation we have to have, you know. Do you have to have a resident sticker to drive your car here? Does Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, Block Island, Aquidneck Island only have X number of cars on the island? So-
Nantucket's doing that now.
So these are conversations that are being had, okay? They're very difficult, very complex, very challenging observations. I think that one of the things that specifically our organization, Discover Newport, works on is trying to work on getting people here on the shoulder seasons and the off-peak seasons. Nancy talked about her role in attracting people in September. I can remember days when I was a kid, I summered on Martha's Vineyard, and I remember getting on the ferry and they were boarding up all the stores, plywood, boom, 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 on Monday of Labor Day. Shut down, done, right? Travel is becoming more of a year, it's a year-round curriculum. The question is, why are you traveling? What do you want to do? I can remember, I'm sure you can all remember a day when the Newport mansions weren't open in the winter. What are the experiences that there are? We have breweries, we have wineries, our mansions are open now, we have car museums. We have a lot of other experiences. We are nowhere near capacity in the winter, so we need to do a better job of telling our travel story during the other times of the year. And basically say to people, we're sold out in the summer. You don't need to come. Please look at us in the shoulder seasons and look at us in the off season for these various different reasons. And so the third part of all of this is the economics of it all, which you pointed to before. And that is, a lot of people don't understand all the economics of travel and tourism, from property taxes to meals taxes to lodging taxes to parking fees to beach fees to cruise ship fees. And I go on, there's about 26 of them. There's no sense in me reeling them all off. But the business of travel is big business. And it is a discussion about business management. And so those three things are the areas that I think are most relevant to the question you asked me, without getting too far off stream off the blue economy.
Thanks, Evan.
Yep.
And our time is up, but I think you all did a great job in really pointing out and emphasizing what an asset we have here, and emphasizing that we need to protect it as we move forward. So I thank you so much for your time, your expertise, and thank you all for taking time out of your day to come. And I hope you'll come to the next session of our Blue NU series. So have a great night.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.